Metropolitan University in 2014, and we initially had a grant from the provincial government to do some work with 9 different post-secondary institutions in Ontario. Since then, we've done, like many of us, we've done a lot of different grants over the years supporting different populations and different groups with our technology and the platforms. We've worked with youth at risk. We've done a lot of Indigenous projects. We did a lot of work around the Syrian refugee crisis. We've worked on literally hundreds of projects since launching in 2014. And right now we have about 50 different funded projects across Canada, and we have about 400 different organizations across Canada using the technology. And we're running a lot of large federal projects with funding from the federal government and from different provinces across the country. So one of the things we focus on, I'm just going to bring up a slide because I think this is important. A lot of people think of us, you know, if they hear Magnet and they may have had some experience with us in the past, they'll think, oh, it's a job board or it's a job matching tool. But I'd like to try to explain a little bit more about what we're really trying to do. One of the big challenges, and I certainly had this when I was used to be director of career services at Toronto Metropolitan University for the business school. And I remember the president of the university called one day and said, Mark, I really want you to meet this new technology provider. They have a really cool job matching platform. And I was like, oh no, not another job board, right? Like, aren't there too many of those already? We had like 6 different ways that, you know, employers were posting to students in one faculty. So what I had been trying to do kind of my whole work as a director was to consolidate those, make it easier for employers and bring it all kind of under one umbrella. And to have my president calling saying, look at this other thing was a little bit, you know, made me a little bit anxious because I was like, we don't need another job board. And I think that's a common thing. We know there are many, many job boards. And one of the big challenges that employers have is actually navigating across those. So if, you know, when I was director of career services at the business school at Ryerson, I was worried about my students, finding jobs for my students. And I thought about it from that perspective, right? So I would think about the employer and how I could build a relationship with my institution, my students. But what I realized after working with employers for a while was that I needed to put myself in their shoes and realize that we needed to make it easier collectively. We needed to make it easier for employers to navigate across the whole ecosystem of organizations that support. So if I had developed a job and I wasn't able to fill that job because I didn't have the right student, why should that job go unfilled? It should go to a student at York or George Brown or some other institution, because at the end of the day, if I helped an employer find somebody, that was building value for the employer. So we got really focused on thinking about the system, right? So instead of having my mindset as an organization, we got really focused on thinking about the system and how could we make it easier or more efficient for a job seeker, a refugee, a student, a newcomer, and an employer to connect, right? And what's really important is technology is only a piece of the puzzle. The work that each of you do, that I've done working with clients in the past, that is incredibly important. And it's important that we have a combination of all of these approaches to really have the impact we want. But what's different about what we've built kind of over the years at Magnet is a way to bring the system together. So even if your organization you work with now has a job board, we can still connect and provide a feed of all of the jobs that we're getting from our network to you. And we can still provide an employer with the ability to post to you. And I'll give you an example of how we did this in the post-secondary system. So if you're an employer and say you want to hire a student at a post-secondary institution, and we'll draw the analogy over to employment services and immigration settlement organizations as well. But if you wanted to hire a student at and you think, well, maybe, I might find them at McMaster, or I might find them at Dalhousie or Toronto Metropolitan or UBC. If you put yourself in the shoes of the employer, they have to go to each of those institutions, find the right faculty, find the right website, log in, build an account, sign up, post their job, log out, and go to the next posting. And even large companies that have big recruiting teams, like RBC, that hires over 2,000 students a year from just post-secondary institutions, they need a whole team of people just to do the postings, right? Because they're going to so many institutions and so on. And there's 197 institutions in Canada that all have talent that an employer could be looking for. But they're not going to have the time or resources to post at 197 different institutions. So grant from the federal government to basically tie the whole system together, where we're not creating a different job board. What we're actually doing is creating a distribution mechanism where the employer can come to one place, post a job, and distribute it to any post-secondary institution in the country. We're also doing the same thing with employment service organizations that are partnering with us, that are either using the technology. So we have a solution for employment service organizations that we can provide, or projects that are supporting employment. And we can provide our basic package free of charge to any organization not for profit in Canada. Or if you already have a platform, which is important, we can connect, depending on the technology that you're using, we could actually connect and distribute jobs that are targeted to your organization through our network. And why is that important? We're not interrupting your building direct relationships with employers. That's really important, but there are many employers that we have on our network that also want to be able to reach out to you. And I'll try and give you an example of why this is important. We have a project, for example, with the Royal Bank of Canada, RBC, and we have created, so many of you may have heard about Future Launch. They have a large $500 million initiative to support youth talent and youth talent development over a 10-year period. We provide the platform for them, for their employers. So all of the companies, if you think about it, there are over 300,000 companies in Canada that bank with RBC. And there are small business advisors at each bank branch that talk to businesses all the time about how RBC can support them. And they have something called, and I'm going to show you just a second, they have something called Beyond Banking. I'm going to share my screen again. Just give me a second. You have something Beyond Banking where they provide additional services or membership like services. So if you bank with RBC, they have special partnerships to provide the businesses that bank with RBC with special benefits. And we've become the platform where RBC is engaging all of these hundreds of thousands of small businesses across the country to come through a portal that we've created for RBC, which is co-branded with RBC, where a company can sign in, create a job posting, distribute it to post-secondary institutions, or distribute it to anybody that's connected on our network. So we're actually then providing all of the data and information to RBC about how their outreach and engagement has impacted employment opportunities being distributed, work integrated learning opportunities for students, how much funding we've been able to give them through, we do a lot of large projects where we do wage subsidies similar to what you may have in some of your organizations for students and so on. And so we can allow RBC, when they have a trust relationship with their companies, to come through an RBC branded portal, post a job. But I'm just going to go back to the graphic here that I had for 1 second. Just share my screen again. And this will explain. So the black circle is representative of like RBC, okay, of a hub that we've created that's branded RBC, where that organization is engaging their employers. But when that employer comes in and posts a job, we can then allow them to choose how to distribute it across the entire system. okay? So we're not replacing the job board that you have, because you may have built something that really works for your organization. What we're doing is trying to connect the system together so that organizations like RBC can become involved and can become part of the solution, leveraging their network for the greater good as well, okay? And I'm just going to share again, hop back here and show you. So we have not only RBC, but we're working with a lot of other organizations as well. So this is, for example, Electricity HR, which is one of the national sector councils that we provide, the Ontario Chambers of Commerce, Canadian Council Aviation Aerospace, et cetera. So we have over 80 industry associations and organizations that are promoting to their employers across the country to come onto the network and post opportunities. And when we send an opportunity over to you, we provide you with all the contact information, everything about that employer, right? Because we want you to be able to serve them. But this is creating a way where an employer can more efficiently and effectively post through an organization that they're already working with, that may be funded as well to support them as a business, but still connect to you and not be disconnected from that, right? So, and I remember I was sitting at, when the Syrian refugee crisis happened, we were sitting at a table, now Senator Ratna Ahmadvar had pulled together a large group of people that were organizations that we're trying to support. And I see some of the organizations on the call today were certainly at that table. And I remember there were many engaged employers. It was actually literally within a week after you may remember the photo of the little boy on the beach that had washed up, and there was a lot of response from the business community. What can we do? Everybody kind of woke up. And I remember having this meeting and the employers saying, well, we have a job. Where are the Syrian refugees that could do this job? And all of us on the system side were saying, well, we don't really know. Maybe if you could just send us a posting. And the employers would say, what, to all of you? Like, how many of you are there? There's like 70. How do we do that? Right? So that was a time that really struck me, that we need to find a way where we, for all of us, can collectively work together to amplify and make it easier for the employers to navigate the system. If you put yourself in the shoes of an employer, and many of you may be job developers or working with employers, it's important to build that relationship with your organization to be able to support them and know the kind of talent that they're looking for and have a personal connection. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the administrative process of posting a job, which they need to do at larger scale. Not all employers, but a lot of employers will want to do that. So if you had, especially medium-sized or larger employers, they're not going to post at all of the employment service organizations or settlement organizations, even in Ontario. If you take just Ontario alone, you have 45 publicly funded post-secondary institutions. You have 358 currently contracted providers of employment in Ontario, all with over 1,100 locations. You have tons of settlement organizations, as you know. So, and sometimes an employment Ontario funded organizations also funded by our IRCC and so on. So there is overlap. There's Ontario Works, there's disability placement. So there are literally thousands of job boards where people are being supported by amazing organizations that are doing incredible work, but it's hard for employers to navigate them. So that's kind of the main issue that Magnet has been focused on. And I'm just going to mention a couple other projects. Like, we work with the city of Winnipeg as an example, which has a large Ukrainian community, and they've been doing really incredible work placing Ukrainian refugees pre-arrival, even through kind of the portal that we're working with on. So a lot of projects like this, and we can connect this kind of work with the city of Winnipeg to Electricity HR when they have the large power generation, and we're bringing skilled people from Ukraine as an example. So That's what we're really focused on doing. If you are at an organization, you can certainly send, clients. If, I still teach LinkedIn workshops. There's value in people knowing where to go to look and build a profile and how to use Indeed and other tools as well. You can send people to Magnet, but we can also work directly with your organization if you have a technology to connect our job feed or create a way for our employers that are on our network and our extended network through all of our partners to be able to connect to you. And that's what we're doing with projects like Lifeline Afghanistan. Okay. So I'm logged into the portal here. We've come to the Lifeline Afghanistan. We have a lot of employers coming through this. They can actually create a job posting. I'm not going to go through the whole, I had logged out. I'm not going to go through the whole process. You guys have seen job postings before. But we have kind of a whole portal where the employers are supported. We can share information. So if you want us to let employers on our network know about programs that you have to support hiring newcomers, we're always happy to do that. You can reach out to us. You can let us know. We're happy to profile. We'll do blogs and stories about the work you're doing in your communities. We're happy to collaborate and profile your organizations with any of our employers. But this is kind of the portal. And again, when an employer posts here, or they post through RBC, or they post through Electricity HR, it's not a separate job board. We can actually have it show up in your system if we work together to connect the dots. And that's what we're doing with many organizations across the country. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to stop, and I think I'm probably even at time or overtime, and hopefully that makes sense. And it's really great to see all of you on the call, and maybe we'll see more of you in person at conferences coming up. But I'm happy to take a few questions if we have time, Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to post questions in the chat box or come off mute. You can use the hand icon or just shout out your question. Anyone want to start? Getting some good thank yous. Maybe Mark, just off the bat, you mentioned that if people wanted to have anything profiled, if someone had a job posting, like an employer, would we just send them to, is there a specific email to send them for a job posting to be put up?
So they could, again, they could create an account themselves, even through Magnet, and then choose to distribute to any of the partner organizations that we have. But for this group, especially, so we have Lifeline Afghanistan, and I'll put that in the URL. Employers can sign up there. But even more importantly, I think for the organizations on the call is how they could receive the jobs where employers are actually looking to find talent, and making sure that the clients they're serving have access to those opportunities. And so, like I said, always happy to work. We can actually do some technical work to connect the platforms together, like what your organization may be using, or we can provide you a free version of our platform with access where you would be able to see those opportunities as well. And it would all come through, be connected to Lifeline Afghanistan or Lifeline Ukraine as well as we move forward with that. I think just it's important to know that it's not another kind of competing job board or another. We're really trying to connect our large network of employers to your organizations to support, collective outcomes. At the end of the day, we just want more people to be connected to opportunities quicker, I think, which is the goal of everybody on this call.
Just pause if there's any other questions. Since Lifeline Afghanistan began, how have you been tracking any metrics on matches that have been made in terms of employment?
Yeah, and I think there is we're going to be publishing some stuff soon. I don't have anything right at my fingertips, but there have been a lot of jobs, and we have a lot of employers as well that are really looking to connect. As we know, there are also, a lot of these challenges are complex, and even, for example, just the timing of when everybody is arriving and available to work and eligible for work is often longer than we think. A lot of employers, for example, are really, even around the Ukrainian refugees now, are looking, but we know a lot of the actual work ready people will be arriving in a few months. So it's syncing, like there's always challenges in syncing, availability, as we all know, and everybody in this call works on the ground every day. So.
Great. Any last thoughts from anyone in the group?
Mark, this might be completely out of scope of Magnet, but just wondering in terms of matching of foreign credentials and trying to honor that process. Do you have any thoughts about that, or are there organizations that you work with that that folks on the call here can maybe approach? Because I know that is such a challenge as we're. I mean, it differs provincially as well, right?
It's a huge challenge, and just as you were just saying, like the provincial and territorial differences. I actually served. I had no idea what the fairness commissioner, who I had no idea what a fairness commissioner did, but actually is responsible for kind of overseeing this and ensuring. This is one of the areas like credentials and so Corinne from IRCC, myself, and a bunch of other people were actually on a committee for a while. It is a very challenging, especially we found in like healthcare, and certain sectors are more challenging than others, obviously. But we have done some work on it, but there's a lot more work to do. So we can do credential, so if employers are looking for credentials, we have at it. So if we wanted to say, we want to be able to match on these credentials and have employers pre-arrival look for people with credentials that could potentially then have a program where they're ensuring that they're transferable and so on. We've done a bunch of work like that, but it's still a challenge. And, I've been in this space for, heavily more broadly outside of post-secondary since 2014, and it was one of the top issues then as well. It's been ongoing, and one of the frustrations is that if we can't, it also affects labor market mobility within Canada, right? Just for generally, and issues around where we have critical shortages, like talking to the ministry in New Brunswick around nursing and PSW and so on. And sometimes it's just a policy issue in a provincial government where they have something provincially that made sense at a time 20 years ago, but makes no sense anymore. So I know I didn't really answer your question, but it's something we all need to keep top of mind and keep working on. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate you being here. And I see Dr. Wendy Sukir here as well. And really appreciate all the work that's gone into Magnet. And I see you have your email in the chat box so people can follow up if they'd like their organization to be more connected to Magnet for their clients. And we'll be able to share the recording if anyone missed the beginning of your presentation as well.
Great.
So thanks again. Super. So we can continue on. If there's any other questions for Mark, we can pass those along to him. I'm going to introduce now from the Aga Khan Council for Canada, Ramzia Ashrafi, who's a seasoned registered nurse with a master's degree in nursing, health systems leadership and administration, with 15+ years of experience in clinical teaching and leadership across Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Canada. Ramzia is currently the clinical practice team lead for Future Ready Initiative Program and national lead for Newcomer Health for Aga Khan Council for Canada. So welcome, Ramzia. And I'm also going to follow with an introduction for Alim. Is it Punja? Alim? Perfect. Okay. Who's a registered social worker and strategic senior leader with strong roots in leading social policy initiatives that enhance quality of life. Alim has been recognized for leading and supporting provincial sector transformation and modernization initiatives and managing complex projects with long-term vision and foresight. Alim holds the position of National Operating Officer for the Aga Khan Council for Canada's Future Ready initiative, which we'll hear about, and is involved in several social governance projects. As a volunteer, most recently as the co-chair on the Toronto Public Board, School Board's Equity Policy Advisory Committee, a member of the Veristel Institute Advisory Board of Directors, a member of the Best Practices Committee on the Ontario Colleges of Social Workers and Social Service Workers, and is an executive member on Civic Action's Emerging Leaders Network. So welcome Alim and Ramzia, who will introduce their Future Ready initiative.
Thanks so much, Jessica. I'll start us off, and then I'm going to be passing it to Ramzia. I'm just going to share my screen. Hoping everyone can see it. Jessica, can you see it on your end?
Yep.
Perfect. And I'm just going to go into slide mode. There we go. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to spend time with you today. I'm going to be taking you through the Future Ready initiative, but first, really wanted to preface this by saying that this settlement was not in our mandate when we conceptualized Future Ready initiative, and certainly became very quickly within our mandate within months of launching the program. We're only a year old, and we're a service that services the Ismaili Muslim community across Canada. So today we'll be sharing with you nuggets of our service model, some of the work that we do, and hoping that you might be able to get some inspiration, and would love to find other ways to be able to pay it forward to share some of the approaches that we've seen work over the last little while. So I'll start off by just giving a little bit of an introduction of who the Ismaili Muslims are. If you don't know, we're a branch of Shia Islam, a minority within the broader Muslim faith. And we're led by His Highness the Aga Khan, who we believe is the 49th Imam and direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. And his responsibility is not only to lead us from a spiritual perspective, but also from a livelihood perspective as well. We're present in over 25 countries, incredible plurality and diversity within our community. We speak a myriad of languages. We have different cultural and historical contexts, and you'll find us in the West, you'll find us in India and Pakistan, through Central Asia, etc. Like I mentioned, the Imam's role is both spiritual and material, and the ultimate goal is the improvement of the quality of life, is really an integral component of the mandate. What is incredibly important within our faith as well is the concept of seva that might be familiar to those of you who have this as a backbone within your community context as well. And seva is really that selfless service, which is really important. And we consider that selfless service a blessing, and also to provide others with opportunity. So just wanted to preface that in terms of kind of our program offering. So as we were looking at establishing the Future Ready initiative, and as we were seeking guidance on what the Future Ready initiative really should be, is it was initially an emergency, a response to an emergency, which was our global pandemic. And we started to see our community, along with the broader community in which we live, become incredibly vulnerable within the economic realm, within the financial realm. We know that the COVID pandemic has created impacts on mental and physical health, and security for a variety of different reasons. And we started to come together as a community to understand what those root causes of vulnerability were and what we needed to do to address them from a programmatic perspective and a service perspective. And so these are some of the vulnerabilities, as you can see, that we were really trying to unpack and understand and really overlay our service model, of which Ramzia will talk a little bit about. We established outcomes that we wanted to see through the program. And the outcomes are international outcomes that our sister organizations across the different countries also aspire to meet. And this is around housing, this is around economic opportunity, this is around access to a social safety net, that there's timely access to physical and mental health care, that every youth should be able to participate in post-secondary education, that every child should have access to early childhood development, or ECE, and that every senior should be able to access social support services and ensure that their dignity is maintained. And so the program is really predicated amongst these 7 outcomes, of which we are now starting to track as we move forward, as we're about a year into the program. So I'll ask Ramzia to take us through the next few slides and spend some time with us on the service model.
Thank you very much, Alan. Good morning, everyone. I am so grateful to be here among all of you this morning. So I'm going to start with our service model. The mandate or the slogan that we have for the FRI, or Future Ready Initiative, is to have a stronger community. And as we think through having a stronger community, we know that there are many different aspects of life and they're very well integrated. We have to keep in mind. And as Alan mentioned earlier about all those vulnerability factors that we need to keep in mind, keeping those in mind, we have 5 pillars within the FRI. And one of those areas is Future of Work. So Future of Work is a program where the coaches are paired with the individuals who are reaching out to our program in order to have access to employment and entrepreneurship opportunities or activities. And that include transitioning to high growth and emerging career pathways. Alan will be discussing the Future of Work in more detail in our next slide. The next pillar that we have is mental health. Mental health purpose is to support the community's awareness of mental health, resiliency, and access to professional services. So we have a lot of programs in terms of resiliency, mental health awareness, coping, self-care that we deliver. Some of these programs virtually. However, we also have some of mental health assessment tools that we use, and some of these are self-administered, some of these are staff administered. And one of those tools that we currently are using is Warwick Edinburgh mental health assessment tool. And we're currently also working on a mental health refugee screening tool to use it for some of our highly vulnerable refugees that are coming. The next pillar of the program is youth mentorship. Youth mentorship is a very structured 2-year program where the youth mentor and mentees are matched, and they work for 2 years program, and they meet at least every other week or every month. And the purpose of this program is to build academic and career life plans through coaching and role modeling. And we have matched about 300 coaches and mentees over the past year. Then the next pillar we have is settlement excellence. So settlement excellence, the purpose of this pillar is to successfully integrate the newcomers into Canadian culture and becoming a contributing citizen of the country. And through this settlement excellence, as just to mention that we are receiving individuals from other countries through various pathways. And one of the pathways that we have is a sponsored agreement holder, which CFC or Council for Canada is a holder. Based on that, we receive some of the most vulnerable families through that pathways. We also receive families through Group of 5 sponsorship family, where community members sponsor their family member. And we also get, of course, through government-assisted refugee as well. So the purpose of Settlement Excellence national mandate is to provide strategic direction and some of those best practices. And our regional team, as Ali mentioned earlier, that we have other boards and portfolios that who does execution of those services. So for example, one of the tool that we use here is we have a settlement checklist that there are different milestones that need to be met in different areas of living, such as finance, housing, healthcare, and ensuring the regional team ensure that those milestones are met within the 2 weeks time frame, 3 months or 6 months, and that's what Settlement Excellence pillar include. And the last pillar that we have is family mentorship. The purpose of this pillar is basically to ensure that individuals are assessed holistically. A family development plan is developed in collaboration with the individuals, ensuring that all the needs are met, again, through partnership internally within our boards and portfolios that we have, or externally. We have case management service under this pillar. We also have subsidy programs for the individuals that are coming for short-term subsidies that we provide through this pillar. Next slide, Alan, please. So these are different stakeholders that we have that are involved throughout our program. Navigators are usually the volunteers who are working with the families to understand their needs and areas of potential or opportunity, and they do a comprehensive assessment and develop that plan. And they also provide coaching and mentorship to our mentors who are the volunteers. And mentors are the individuals who ensure that they play a critical role in the execution of the plan and connecting the individuals to different boards and portfolios that we have internally or through external service providers. And fast track program mentors, I already discussed that. And then we have future of work coaches that are supporting the individuals through a 6-step counseling and mentorship process, which Alan will be discussing in the next slide. The last is the board and portfolio. So we have different boards and portfolios such as education board, health board, social welfare, settlement, and we have subject matter experts who are the point of contact for our navigators as well as our mentors and provide those services and support, coaching, mentorship, connection, all sort of collaboration that they do. Next slide. So this slide will briefly provide you an overview of journey of an individual that comes, our community members that come through our program. This shows from all the way from referral to preliminary screening, assessment and development of plan, establishing relationship, navigation of plan, and all the way to graduation. So we have an intake process where an individual shows interest to our program. They reach out to our access line where either they can do themselves, they can do a referral themselves, or it could be done through an individuals who have identified their problem. Access volunteer create a ticket based on their request, and they do a screening and they connect them to the right resources. They can connect them to the right services. And a ticket will be sent to our FRI, and it will be triaged by our navigators who are our volunteers. A navigator that does an initial assessment, and once they understand the need, then they connect them to the right resources. Of course, once a confidential agreement is signed and a consent is obtained. Then we, of course, we do development of plan, and based on how complex the cases are, if the cases are very complex, it's also hand over to our case managers who are our staff. If the case are not complex and managed by our volunteers within their scope, then our volunteers develop that detailed assessment. And they also bring mentor on board, who are, as I mentioned earlier, mentors are coaches, role models, who does those hand-holding and supporting the individuals, connect them to the right resources, and ensuring that those milestones or those goals within the family plan is met. And navigation of the plan, again, here is where the service providers internally or externally are getting involved, and the mentor connect the individuals to those resources as needed. And finally, of course, the graduations, once those goals are met, if there's no new emerging goals, then the individual graduates from the program. This is case assignment of our SAW families, as I said, sponsored agreement families. These are, as I mentioned, they are very highly vulnerable families. Usually families are who are, one individual, a female household with multiple children with disabilities, and complex cases. So we ensure that we have a group of individuals involved from the very beginning. So we have a case managers or a navigators or a settlement worker, as well as family mentor that are identified within the region that they're going. The national officers, LM himself, allocates to the regional case manager, and the case managers collaboratively work with the settlement to develop and monitor the settlement plan and the settlement checklist that I mentioned earlier. And then we have got settlement member in each regions who allocates a settlement lead and support the case manager and family mentor during that their settlement, and connect them to those settlement agencies of newcomers or other resources as needed. And the last, as I mentioned, is our family mentor, who work very closely with our case manager and settlement worker, and ensuring those key goals are met and connection to those resources are made. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'll hand over again to Alan. Oh, I can go with this slide as well. So I think this slide is also relevant. I think it's kind of shows you an overview of, as Alan mentioned, we are a national program. We are operated in all jurisdictions, and we have many different partners, which are our other central institution or sister institutions. And we work with many different individuals. These are peoples, it's titled differently, but they're all volunteers within different boards and portfolios that we work very collaboratively in order to support our families that we serve. Thank you. I will hand over to you now.
Thanks, Ramzia. And I think one of the other things which is really important to note is we can't do it alone. So not only do we have internal partnerships, but external partnerships as well. And there are a number of relationships that we have with the organizations of which you represent, and Lifeline Afghanistan, who is here with us today. So really, really humbled and gracious to have all of your support as well here. So given that the theme is around employment, one of the pillars, as Ramzia talked about, is our future work pillar and our career ready program. And so when we think about future work, we're looking at individuals in the community that come here to Canada and need to start to create a life. And some require what we call a survival job. And we work with partners like Magnet and internal within the community to really find what those survival jobs, to find those survival jobs for the community members. But one of the other pieces to the program is to ensure quality of life and to ensure that we're able to support community members for having a leg up within their lives. And so once there's a period of stability that's attained, once there's a level of integration that's attained, we encourage, and of course, it depending on individual agency to be able to want to move forward with this, is to go through a coaching exercise. And we have a number of volunteer certified coaches, employment coaches, and a handful of staff certified coaches that would take a community member through a 6-step coaching process. There's an intake that's done. There's a discovery that's done through the Ikigai framework, which is really the Japanese word for exploration. There is a stage of looking at what are some of those opportunities and exploring those opportunities, and then ensuring that there's connection, because mentorship and sponsorship is really integral, as we know, to success of those who come here to Canada. And then hopefully put that purpose into action. And so it is about a 6 to 8 session journey. Some individuals require more, some individuals require less. And we've started to really realize that through the coaching journey, people felt a sense of positive self-esteem, of growth, of wanting to move forward. And some folks actually, a number of folks actually have landed in better employment opportunities, which enhance their quality of life and their family's quality of life. And so we're really, future work is a significant pillar in and amongst the Future Ready initiative. Like I mentioned, networking, mentorship and sponsorship is incredibly important. And we also created a program called 10,000 Chais, which is on the 10,000 Coffees network. And it brings together community members who are at different stages of their business journey, employment journey, career journey. And it uses an algorithm to connect people together. We have just under 2,000 individuals on the network, and every couple of weeks, the IT system will match individuals together. And it's really under the auspice of looking at, is there an opportunity to make connection? Is there an opportunity to be inspired to one another? And is there an opportunity to learn from one another? And I'll show a quick 60-second video that talks about 10,000 Chais.
Welcome to the launch of the 10,000 Chais platform. I'm so excited that the Ismaili community now has access to a virtual platform that will connect brothers and sisters from coast to coast for virtual chai conversations. Now, I want to know a little bit more about 10,000 Chais. So who better to ask than the founder himself, Dave Wilkins?
Well, I'm thrilled that the Ismaili community is part of the 10,000 Chais platform. All of you can join, build your profile based on your interests and goals. Our smart matching algorithm will match the Jamaat based on your goals and interests, so that Jamaat can have countless exciting chai chats, all based on what they'd like to discuss virtually, no matter where they're located.
And for every Jamaati member 18 plus, please take the time to register for the 10,000 Chais platform.
And oops, some of the things that we're seeing, particularly with our newcomers that are coming, from different countries, is really aligned with probably what you're seeing as you're working with the individuals that you're serving. And what we're trying to troubleshoot and certainly bring programs and services together is really around trauma. There's an incredible challenge with respect to accessing primary care. We're also seeing families who are kind of landing in cities in which their sponsors are living in. And they could be living in different parts of Canada, but we're seeing migration across interprovincial borders to large urban centers like Toronto and Calgary. It being their second landing destination and them wanting to actually settle in these metropolises. The challenge is access to housing and a number of other challenges that go as a result of that. Retraining and upskilling while in a survival job is really challenging. Many individuals have large families or are trying to integrate. One of the pieces that stuck with me when I was personally having a conversation with the family is they were mentioning that as they're earning one loaf of bread, they're sending half of it back home. And that stuck with me because it is the journey of the individual that comes to settle in Canada to make a better life for themselves, that they have family back home. And much of the reasons for not being able to certainly look at themselves and building their quality of life is because they're ensuring the quality of life of their family back home. And we're seeing that as something that is certainly a challenge, but of course an opportunity as well. Integration in terms of understanding the laws of the land, particularly around parenting and the intersection of child protection services becoming involved as a result of that is something that we're seeing. And of course, worry and happiness at the same time, this dichotomy that newcomers feel on an everyday basis, the sense of relief coming to Canada, but the sense of worry and feeling scared because of where they're at and because maybe some of their family and those close to them are still living in countries where there isn't opportunity like here. I'll stop there, given the interest of time, Jessica. But I'm hoping that that we were able to give a bit of a synopsis of the services that we provide to the community, but also some tidbits on what a service model can look like, the importance of networking, the importance of mentorship, the importance of partnership, and how all of those pieces really are critical to positive settlement. So hopefully that gave a good synopsis of that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Aleem and Ramzia, for just giving us a broad view of the whole model. And I think I'll open up the space for questions in our last 5 minutes. Does anyone want to chime in, either coming off mute or posting a question in the chat box? And I was really, I guess, remarking on the role of volunteers, that it's a central role in your model. And I don't know if there's any reflections on from other agencies on the role that volunteers play, if that aligns with your model, or if the role of volunteers may not be in their agency's work. So that's another line of thought as well. As I know many residents are interested in supporting, for example, the refugees and displaced persons who are coming in.
Yeah, Jessica, we have a very small national staff group of 19 of us, and just under 600 volunteers within a Future Ready initiative. And so all the way from being a mentor to a navigator to a settlement worker, and all the way to actually strategy roles and policy roles as well. So our entire, going back to the first slide around selfless service, or the concept of seva, is integral to the success of kind of all of our programs and services.
And I'm sure a key support on that is training for those volunteers. So I wonder, maybe unless anyone else has any other questions, would love to hear also about how you support volunteers so that they are skilled with the essential tools needed for the roles they take on.
Yeah, there is. We do have a robust training that happens, but we of course realize that it needs to be nimble, it needs to be flexible, and it needs to be very on point. And so we've certainly learned that as well. There's also criteria for volunteers. So for example, to be a navigator within Future Ready initiative, you must be a social services professional or a healthcare professional, and have the ability to do a biopsychosocial assessment, which is our family plan. And so we have just under 100 navigators across the country that work with families, not only in person, but also virtually. And so there's different criteria for the different volunteer roles that we have. There's structures in place in terms of how volunteers are supported. So for example, there's opportunities for the navigators to have group supervision, access to a consulting psychologist. They have access to staff if they have questions on on particular cases that they're working with. Mentors have mentorship leads. They have team meetings. They have professional development opportunities as well. And so it is incredibly structured and really role-based, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So maybe we have time for one more question. And in the meantime, I'll also flag, Shreya has added to the chat box the link to the evaluation survey. So if you can take a moment to fill that out, that would be really helpful. We'll also follow with an email with the recording as well as the survey link as well, if you'd like to follow up afterwards. Any final thoughts from anyone? It's a quiet group this morning. Super. Well, again, thank you so much, Aleem and Ramzia, for giving us the opportunity to hear about this model that really emerged out of the pandemic. And I think that just really helps with the resilience for the community, and really appreciate hearing about that. And I'm sure if you wanted to put your emails in the chat box, if others have questions afterwards, they can follow up with you. We'll just flag that we have a couple more sessions such as this focused on support for refugees. We have one coming up on unique language supports. And so if you'd like to sign up for our PNSG newsletter, this is another way that we can share some of that. So it's on our plnewcomer.org website if you'd like to sign up for a newsletter to hear about upcoming sessions. But on that note, I wish everyone a wonderful day, and thank you so much again, Aleem, Ramzia, Mark, who's had to leave, and Dr. Wendy Sukir and Fauzi, who are here from the Diversity Institute and Lifeline Afghanistan as well. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for having us, Jessica. Have a great day.
Of course, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.